Hello and welcome back to another review, but today I'm going to review The World Beyond Season 2, Episode 1, and wow, I have very little feelings on this episode. I don't know what I watched, to be honest. Normally when you watch an episode, you have a feeling, you get a feeling, you're like, okay, that was fun, I didn't like that, but I watched this and I was like, what did I just watch? Because I don't know what I watched. I sat down for like 45 minutes, how long this was. It felt like it went on, it felt like it went on for an hour or so, but also at the same time, it went on for like 20 minutes. It felt like that, like I've either been there for too short of a time to understand it, or I've been there for too long. Like, the pacing is very weird, I don't understand it. So the episode is split into two parts. Like, you have the Felix and Iris part, which that whole part there is completely useless. Like, it's just talking, there's no fun there. It's just them going, what, this happened, what are we gonna do, we should do something, and nothing happens. They just kind of sit there. We meet some new people, but they kind of sit there and do nothing. And then we have the slightly more interesting, but still not interesting, Hope bit with Elizabeth and Huck. And the Hope thing, absolutely useless, because she kind of goes off and tries to do her own thing, ends up hitting herself in the head and hallucinating. And the worst bit about that is that we get this weird, like, because she's got a concussion, they're like, hey, do you know what we're going to do? We're going to slightly desaturate the noise. And it's quite a long segment, maybe 10 minutes. And then we're going to have the vision on the camera blurred around the corners. It's just not fun to look at. It's not pretty. Like, I want to watch the show to, like, enjoy it. I can't enjoy it when it's just blurry. And you're like, okay, so the center of the screen's fine, but it's all blurry and it's all dark. And you're like, there's nothing fun to look at. I just hated the concussion part because of the blurriness. Like, someone's like sitting there crying, the audio's a bit off, and just the stupid like blurriness around the camera. You're like, oh, thanks for blurring my screen, yay. I put it on a big TV just to literally watch fuzz. That's what it felt like. The only good part of the Hope section was Elizabeth. I really liked her character. I liked her kind of bit in the first season, but she wasn't in as much, but she was quite a lot in this episode, and she was quite fun to watch. And the best bit about the entire episode was right at the start, you had this very big CRM thing, you saw him doing something very evil, and I quite liked it. I was like, yes, that was cool. And then Elizabeth later on just still becomes cool. She's the best bit about the show so far. Like, Felix, you're the best bit about season 1, but you were terrible this episode, and Elizabeth is the only good thing about this episode, I feel, other than that intro sequence. It's the intro sequence, and Elizabeth is the only good things about this episode. Everything else is off. Like, it looks terrible. It's not really nice to look at. Like, look at Fear and The Walking Dead. Sometimes Walking Dead sometimes looks terrible. Those shows look pretty. And then you have World Beyond, which is like, hey, we're going to put it all in dark. There was actually a pretty sight, actually, where they're on this roof looking over the city and it looked quite pretty. That's the only bit I remember going, that's actually quite pretty. But that's the only bit where the cinematography looked good. Everything else was just dark and just kind of boring to look at. The pacing was all over the place. I didn't know if it was ending or not. I was like, what's happening? I felt like nothing's happened. Nothing progressed in the story. It's just like, hey, this is like the first episode, the final season. What are we gonna do? We're just gonna have everyone just walk around and do nothing. That's what it felt like. This is episode 11 out of 20. Okay, 11. Well, we're over halfway through the whole series, and this is what we get. Just kind of a bleh episode that does nothing towards the story. And moving on to the ending, okay, Hope's ending made sense, but then out of nowhere, the Iris side of the story ending just does this, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to spoil it too much, but I don't believe Iris could do that. I feel like she hasn't gone through enough to be able to do this suddenly, and you're like, wow, okay, so that character did a big progression between the two episodes, even though they take place back to back. Like, she's never indicated she's able to do anything similar to that before, but then she goes and does that, and you're like, wow, okay, well, looks like this is going to happen now, and I really didn't like it, okay? So if I want to do my one sentence overall review, I'd just say this is an okay but empty episode, okay? Like, nothing happens, to be honest. There's no progression to the story. It's just a filler starter. That's what it is. It's a filler starter episode, and I didn't like it. But what do you think? Please tell me. I'd like to know. Do you even watch World Beyond? Do you not? I'd like to know that as well. I don't think many people watch this show. I don't even know why I watch this show, because it's not very good. And I'll talk to you later. So goodbye, peace out, and see you tomorrow.